What's up guys, Cam here to go through our first of our video series talking about our training overview, how we go about programming for our athletes, and that's going to talk about our general prep phase. So if you haven't seen, reference our initial video, our first video where we talk about how we're going to break down the different phases. So we're going to focus today's video on the general prep, and the general prep phase really is oftentimes, when people think of the fun stuff. This is where we're gonna, coming off of an off season, or we're coming off of a downtime, maybe a deload, or maybe we're running through, a block system, or the style of periodization we're running in a training plan, where we're going to return to some things, and we're going to talk about what qualities that we want to see in a general phase, and really throughout this video series give more understanding of why it is important to have a specific phase, but then ultimately what are our really key objectives that we want to get from each phase and how we tie these all together. So when we're talking about a general phase, we're really thinking about the highest volume. This is when we're really ramping things up. So let's just give an example for sport. Let's say season is approaching and we're reporting back from the summer or the off season. So we're going to start with more extensive over intensive efforts. If I am a 100-meter sprinter, this might be doing longer duration, pace, tempo work, interval training sets. We might mix in some fartlek or some, maybe some steady state training. We can be a little bit more general here. So, again, my event might be the 100-meter dash, but I'm going to run 8 to 12 initially, 200s, maybe even 300s. We might mix in some 400s, some over distance training, 5 and 600s. If we would get nasty, might throw an 8 in there, occasionally, but just doing some longer base efforts. And the goal of this is really going to build our aerobic base. We want to build a base that we can get the sort of physiological and the adaptation as well from as far as our VO2 maximum capacity. So that we're really focused in a phase. Again, we're going to cater this series towards anaerobic explosive athletes. That's primarily what we work with in-house. I would say that neurally, right, if in a general base phase, we're oftentimes targeting maybe more type 1 fibers, depending on the training. You might be able, you might see a focus on type 2, those hybrid fibers, the larger motor units, but oftentimes, if we're talking about that cup theory, you can only focus on so many things at once. We're going to see the body, we're going to allow the body to acclimate to higher volume. So that's going to be a really good time to focus on aerobic base, putting on muscle mass. General preparatory work is going to be prehab and rehab focused. So hey, maybe we need to work on those ankles. We're going to throw in extensive plyometrics where we're going to focus on more ground contacts and a less intensive variation. So versus box jumps and depth drops, we're doing skips and bounds and hops, over very low heights, just more so over distances and larger ground contacts. So again, we're going to go through our movement glossary and really target general strength. So in more of a triphasic system, we're always going to be geared towards our explosive athletes with a strength emphasis, but we're really going to target here, going from a volume base, put on some muscle that we can translate into strength, some general strength qualities. So as we move in that specific preparatory phase, we can really start focusing on true strength qualities. So allow us to be able to withstand the duration of training. Training is grueling, and to train appropriately, to see adaptation, there has to be stress. Stress has to be a part of the training system. So what we do in the general preparatory phase really allows us to train those intensive plyometrics, all the things that you see on the ground, the heavy lifts, the crazy plyometrics. We want to lay down a foundation here for movement qualities, looking at the biomechanics of the sport, the analysis of the movement patterns that we're going to be seeing in competitive time, and then making sure that we're giving our athletes that base. So we really don't want to be peaking in a general phase. We want to be sore. We want to be fatigued. That way we can push someone down the hole of stress, so that ultimately we can get that rebound and get that super compensation, the improvement of the qualities we're looking to work on. So for training basis, we're going to think 3 to 7 days a week, and we put a pretty large basis there because it's really going to be based on the level of the athlete. A youth athlete, a novice, beginner athlete is going to, obviously train less days a week. As we become, more moderately advanced to advanced, we're going to see those days increase. Again, but we generally recommend in a general phase is as much training as the body can handle. And again, you might break up those days, depending. You might go total body more often. You might break it up in upper body, upper lower, maybe a mix in the middle. Really depend on what your body, where your fitness is, where your training experience is, and those exposures are like. We often, as far as intensity percentage base, we're looking around 50 to 75%. And that's a really big range too, because we're thinking more time under tension, more muscle qualities. We're going to spend time in these phases working on isometrics, density training, tendon, ligament, connective tissue structure training. And that's going to be time under tension. We're going to utilize both our volume, our time under tension sets, as well as our slow, controlled, heavier lifts. So we can not just target that physiological adaptation as well as the connective tissue adaptation, which is super important. 3 to 6 sets, so we're looking at higher volume. This is what you might be more accustomed to seeing in a bodybuilding program or a more aesthetic-based program. Anywhere from 18 to 20 reps. Everything works, nothing works forever, so change that shit up. Obviously, when we're in our specific phases, that competitive phase, we want to be very focused on the sport requirements. So again, if I'm trying to peak speed and agility and explosiveness, we're going to be doing overspeed training, resisted exercises. We're going to try and either do something that's heavier and producing more force than we're going to see in that sport or that event. We're going to do something lighter, and we want to do it faster. But again, in our general phase, our focus is accumulating volume, again, that density. So this is a really good time to get jacked, have some fun with your training, and you're going to see a lot of your more general lifts. Now we're also going to build those lifts up. So we're going to go through a general phase and incorporate really solid movement mechanics and patterns. So we want to hit all these muscle groups, hit all different movement patterns, making sure that in the later phases we have a very good knowledge, understanding of the lifts, what we're going to be doing in the weight room, so we can be very successful with those. So again, higher volume, general training stimulus, and really building in the general prep phase to take us into those later phases, so we can continue to build and be the very most explosive athletes that we can.